You've probably never heard of Castle Conklin, which was built on Captree Island, but back in 1878, a group of America's best artists made a trip across the Great South Bay to be there. Today, Captree Island is filled with fishing boats and visitors, but back in 1878, there was nothing but water, wind, and silence. Castle Conklin wasn't a castle at all. It was a modest group of wooden buildings that was run by Jesse Conklin, who was known as Uncle Jesse. There was no luxury, but there was legendary hospitality. People crossed the bay for the food, the stories, and the feeling of being completely removed from the rest of the world. Kind of like when we get on the ferry today to go to Fire Island. The artists called themselves the Stone Mugs. They were part of a creative circle that was later known as the Tile Club. Painters, illustrators, and writers who were helping to define American art. Some members of this circle, including Winslow Homer, will go on to become some of the most influential artists in American history. Homer himself wasn't on this trip. In June of 1878, the Stone Mugs arrived at Castle Conklin hungry. But when they stepped inside, something felt strange. There was no sounds of cooking, no plates being set, and no one rushing around. 6 o'clock passed, then 7, and suddenly Uncle Jesse burst through the door. It was a massive feast. Porterhouse steaks, broiled bluefish, fresh bread, slabs of butter, plenty of wine. Uncle Jesse sat at the end of the table and fell asleep, perfectly content. But the artists didn't leave. They quietly took out charcoal, chalk, and brushes. They began drawing directly on the walls. Fish houses, boats, the bay, the shoreline. They even drew Uncle Jesse himself, quietly sleeping at the table. By the end of the night, nearly every inch of the walls were covered. And when Uncle Jesse woke up, he didn't stop them. He walked the room, studied the drawings, and let them continue. For one night in 1878, this simple dining room in Captree Island became the most creative room anywhere in America. Not a gallery, not a museum, just artists, food, and imagination sitting on the edge of the bay. And 8 years later, in 1886, Castle Conklin burned down. No walls, no artwork, no trace. Only the stories remain. I'm John Anthony Savoca, selling Long Island and telling its stories.